My name is Claire Jensen, and I'm a PhD candidate in the Art History Department at the University of Toronto. When I first started my program at U of T, I knew that I wanted to study art from sometime between the medieval and the Renaissance periods in Italy. With the help of my supervisors, I trained as a medievalist, and I used context-driven methods to write about 14th and 15th century paintings in southern Italy. In my research, I look beyond the famous geniuses of the Italian Renaissance to uncover the extraordinary history of anonymous, broken, and sometimes mediocre paintings that are often neglected in the typical canon of art history. So now, for my Art History in 10 video, I'm going to talk to you about a particular kind of forgotten Renaissance painting, the kind that allegedly grants miracles. Even though I am personally fascinated by image cults, they are not always studied in art history. One of the main reasons for the neglect is that so-called miracle-working art often includes elements from more than one time period. For traditional art history, which is divided into stylistic eras, think ancient, medieval, early modern, Baroque, etc., miraculous images present a typological challenge. Even Megan Holmes, an Italian Renaissance painting specialist who wrote a foundational book on miraculous images in Florence, admits that there's no precise formula to identify which kinds of artworks inspire cultic devotion. Holmes does, however, note that there is almost always a divine event or legend associated with a miraculous artwork. The stories of magical healings and divine intercessions help the art gain a reputation as a potential portal to God and the heavens. This inspires something that we call an image cult, which indicates the communal activity of religious veneration. Image cults in Italy keep an artwork relevant and lead to centuries of gifts, adornments, and cosmetic changes that make the original painting very difficult to categorize. To clarify what I mean, let me show you an example. Dated to circa 1340, the most famous cult image in Florence is this fresco wall painting of the Annunciation in the church of Santisima Annunciata. Can you see the original painting in this photo? It's somewhat difficult to spot underneath its glorious tabernacle frame and various accumulated metal decorations, but I promise that it's a fresco that shows Mary and the angel Gabriel facing each other in front of a long wooden bench. Gabriel has his arms crossed over his chest and he bows to Mary as she tilts her chin up to accept a diagonal slant of gilded golden light. A quotation in Latin from the Bible, "Behold, the handmaiden of the Lord," unfolds from Mary's mouth and signals that the Immaculate Conception is taking place. Do you notice in this picture that the figure of Mary has a lot more shiny bling than the figure of Gabriel? Well, according to legend, the artist of the fresco was a monk named Fra Bartolomeo, who couldn't finish the work because he was having trouble capturing a face as beautiful as the Holy Mary's must have been. Discouraged, Bartolomeo went to bed, and when he woke up, he found that an angel had visited and painted Mary's face for him. The Annunciation has been celebrated ever since as a point of access between the human and the divine worlds in Florence. Obviously, the angel-made face of Mary is seen as being very powerful, and thus she deserves a crown and lots of fancy jewelry. As the fame of the fresco grew, so did its decoration. In 1448, the Medici family architect Michelozzo designed the tempietto, or little temple, that enshrines the painting, and the 19 silver lamps that hang around it like a chandelier were added in the 18th and 19th centuries. Can you see the collections of metal badges to the left of the painting? These are known as ex voto, and they are traditionally given to cult images as a kind of gift or token to symbolize a prayer for divine intercession. The Annunciation fresco has probably received thousands, if not more, of these offerings since it was painted in the 14th century. Although the fresco in Florence is certainly fascinating, it is not unique. Miraculous images can be found in churches and shrines all over Italy, and on this slide are three examples that I've found in my research. On the left is the Madonna del Fuoco, which is a woodcut print from a small city in Emilia-Romagna called Forlì. The piece of paper showing the Virgin and Child miraculously survived a fire in the 15th century and has become somewhat of a mascot for the city ever since. The image in the middle is the Madonna Bruna del Carbine, a panel painting that is venerated for its healing powers in the Piazza del Mercato neighborhood in Naples. And finally, on the right is a 14th century fresco on the high altar of the Church of Santa Maria in Vallicella in Rome. Originally located on the street, this Madonna gained a reputation as miraculous after she was struck by a stone and allegedly bled real blood. The painting was moved inside in 1606 and given an elaborate mechanical frame designed and painted by Peter Paul Rubens. You can see the fresco in the photo I put on this slide, but it's usually covered by a copper oval that depicts an updated version of the Madonna and Child that hides underneath it. On feast days and for special masses, an internal mechanism raises the outer painting to reveal the miraculous fresco beneath it. There are lots of videos on YouTube if you're interested in seeing it in action. So the three examples I just showed you are very famous, so their decoration is extra lavish, but in reality, cult images can be found on almost every street in most Italian cities. I was lucky to have a visiting position in Tuscany last spring, and on this slide are photos of image shrines I encountered on my daily walks around Florence. Like the miracle paintings in churches, these sacred works are not famous because they are original masterpieces by a genius artist. In fact, it's usually impossible to know exactly where these street side images came from, how old they are, or even why they are worshipped. Of all the image shrines I encountered around Florence, this one was my favorite. It's on a hilltop road that curves above the city and is a simple terracotta relief of the Virgin and Child. You can see in the photo that the sacred image is pretty much hidden behind a number of colorful adornments. These include plastic flowers, a few keychains, and even a battery-operated candle, which is carefully attached to the chicken wire grating and protected from the rain by half of a plastic water bottle. There are also more beaded necklaces, coins, photos, and even handwritten notes inserted through the screen closer to the sacred image. I walked past this shrine about once a week last year and almost always saw something new. Although I can't say for certain, it seems like these things were gifts given by local people taking their daily walks in lockdown and hoping for the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. Although the quality of decoration is certainly lower and much less prestigious, the accumulation of ex-voto on street-side cult images like the one I just showed reminds me of the devotional activity at Santisima and Nanciata. I wonder if attendance at its daily masses have increased since the pandemic. Even though I'm not Catholic, I found myself visiting the sacred fresco perhaps a bit more often than I normally would last year. I couldn't help but feel tempted to pray to the Annunciation for vaccines and for the continued health of my family and friends. It couldn't hurt, right? In my dissertation, I study art from a network of civic hospitals in the Kingdom of Naples. I was very excited when I found documentary evidence that the painting on this slide, a panel that shows an Annunciation, was given gifts and celebrated as a miraculous image for centuries. The church was connected to a hospital that helped the community through a number of epidemics, storms, and earthquakes, so I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised that there was a miraculous painting on the main altar. Do you have art or media that you've revisited during the stress of the pandemic? Although giving gifts to a painting is certainly different from binging old Netflix shows, I think that there's something to be said about turning to old and familiar art, stories, and sitcoms for comfort in times of great stress and uncertainty. So even though this Annunciation was painted in 1419, the frame has been changed and updated many times to reflect its reputation for healing and helping the community. Based on my research discoveries, my analysis of this late medieval painting isn't static, but rather moves through time to consider the miraculous context of the painting's changing enshrinement. With this creative, context-driven method of studying 15th century art, I was able to uncover something new and interesting about a 600-year-old, almost forgotten painting. I also found a story of miraculous devotion and hope that maybe somehow still resonates with us in 2021. That's all I have on image cults today. Thank you so much for watching my Art History in 10 video, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.